stood at the viewing window and stared at the massive space station floating before him. It was bigger than anything he had ever seen. The station looked like a giant silver wheel spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Lights flickered across its surface like thousands of tiny stars. "Still can't believe we're actually here," said beside him. She pressed her hand against the glass, her eyes wide with wonder. Smiled at his colleague. They had worked together for 5 years back on Earth, studying animals in the wild. Now they were representing all of humanity at the Galactic Council. It felt like a dream. Docking sequence initiated, the ship's computer announced. Arrival at Council Station Omega 7 in 10 minutes. Took a deep breath. He wore his best suit, dark blue with Earth's new symbol on the chest, a simple circle representing their planet. Wore something similar, her long black hair pulled back neatly. "Remember what Director Park told us," said. "Be polite, follow all their rules, don't touch anything." Nodded, "And definitely don't embarrass the entire human race." "Right, no pressure at all," laughed nervously. The ship moved slowly into one of the station's docking bays. Through the window, could see other ships from different worlds. Some were shaped like triangles. Others looked like flowing water frozen in time. Each one was strange and beautiful. When the docking finished, the door slid open with a hiss. A wave of cool air rushed in, carrying smells couldn't recognize, sweet and sharp at the same time. "Here we go," he whispered. They walked down the ramp into the docking bay. The floor was smooth and white, almost glowing under the bright lights. Dozens of aliens moved around them, busy with their own tasks. Tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to look. There were tall beings with blue skin and 4 arms. Short creatures covered in what looked like green fur. Some floated in the air without walking. Others left trails of mist behind them as they moved. "Ambassador, Doctor," a voice spoke in perfect English. They turned to see their first official contact. The alien stood about 2 meters tall, with a body that reminded of an insect but walked upright like a human. Its skin was dark purple and shiny. Multiple eyes sat on top of its head, moving independently to look at different things. It wore a silver robe that shimmered when it moved. "I am ambassador of the collective," the alien said. Its mouth didn't move like a human's, but the voice was clear. "Welcome to Council Station Omega 7. I will be your guide today." "Thank you, Ambassador," said, bowing slightly. "We're honored to be here." "Come, the ceremony begins soon, but first, orientation." Turned and began walking and followed quickly. The station was enormous inside. Hallways stretched in every direction, each one wide enough for 20 people to walk side by side. The walls showed images of different worlds, beautiful planets in colors had never imagined. "The council consists of 47 species," explained as they walked. "We represent civilizations from across this sector of the galaxy. The council maintains peace, shares knowledge, and protects younger species." "Like humanity," said. "Precisely. Your species has been observed for 50 Earth years. The council has decided you are ready for provisional membership." "Provisional?" asked. His eyes all focused on him at once. "Full membership requires proving your species understands our ways. Many species never achieve this. Some are asked to leave." The way said it made stomach tighten. This wasn't just a ceremony, it was a test. They entered a large round room. Dozens of aliens already sat in seats arranged in a circle. Each one looked different from the next. Some were huge, filling 3 seats. Others were so small could barely see them. At the center of the circle stood a tall reptilian creature with golden scales. It wore a red robe with symbols that seemed to move on their own. "That is High Chancellor," whispered. "She leads the council. She is old, and very wise." Chancellor raised one clawed hand. Everyone became quiet instantly. "Humans and—" her voice echoed through the room without shouting. You stand before the Galactic Council as representatives of your world. Do you understand the responsibility you carry? We do, Chancellor said. His voice sounded small in the huge room. Then listen well. The Council has rules that all species must follow. These rules have kept peace for 10,000 years. Yellow eyes fixed on them. Rule 1. No violence against any Council species. Rule 2. No theft of technology or knowledge. Rule 3. No interference with protected worlds. She paused and another alien stood. This one looked like it was made of living stone, rough and gray. Rule 4. The stone alien said in a grinding voice. No contact with station fauna without proper authorization and protection, especially the Guardians. Guardians asked quietly. Shifted uncomfortably. The station maintains security creatures. They are called void stalkers, very dangerous. They have lived here for thousands of years since the station was built. Are they intelligent? Asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. Several aliens made sounds. Some seemed like laughter, others sounded like disgust. They are beasts, the stone alien said. Apex predators from the dark world of perfect hunters, perfect killers. We keep them in the lower levels. They guard against intruders who break through our defenses. Many species have tried to approach them, added quietly. All have failed. Hundreds have died over the centuries. Now we keep strict distance. The stalkers stay in their areas, we stay in ours. Chancellor spoke again. This is not negotiable, humans. The void stalkers are not pets. They are not friends. They are weapons kept under careful control. Your species is known for recklessness, for attempting things others would not. This cannot happen here. Felt his face grow warm. Earth's history was violent compared to most Council species. Humanity had almost destroyed itself several times before finally reaching for the stars. We understand, Chancellor said firmly. We will follow all rules. Good, settled back. Then let us begin the formal ceremony. Humanity will have 60 days to prove it can coexist with the Council. After that time, we will vote on full membership. The ceremony lasted 3 hours. Different ambassadors stood and spoke about peace and cooperation, and had to repeat oaths in 5 different languages. By the end, his feet hurt and his head ached from trying to remember everyone's names. But he felt something else too. Pride, hope. Humanity had come so far, from a single planet to the edge of galactic civilization. As they left the ceremony room, heard a sound, low and rumbling coming from somewhere below. It vibrated through the floor. What was that? He asked. His eyes looked downward. The stalkers, they're feeding time. Come, your quarters are on the upper levels, far from the lower sections. As they walked away, looked back toward where the sound had come from. Something about it called to him. It reminded him of lions roaring in the African reserves where he used to work. The sound of predators. But also something else. Something the Council might have missed. He shook his head and followed, and they had rules to follow. He couldn't let curiosity ruin humanity's chance. Not yet, anyway. 3 days had passed since the ceremony. Was starting to understand life on the station. Wake up at 6. Breakfast in the common dining area where 47 species tried to share space without conflict. Then meetings and tour, learning about Council procedures and galactic law. Today was different. Today they were getting a full station tour, including areas usually off-limits to visitors. Stay close, said as their group gathered near the main elevator. Some areas are more dangerous than others. The group included, and plus 6 other newly arrived ambassadors from different worlds. One looked like a floating jellyfish with glowing spots. Another seemed to be made entirely of plants, leaves and vines woven together into a body shape. The elevator moved smoothly downward. Through the transparent walls, watched level after level pass by, docking bays, living quarters, gardens with plants from 100 worlds, laboratories, medical centers. "How far down does this go?" asked. 140 levels, said. "We are going to level 100. Below that are only the maintenance systems and the stalker containment areas." The plant ambassador made a rustling sound. "I still do not understand why the council keeps such dangerous creatures." "Tradition," answered, "and necessity. 3,000 years ago, raiders attacked this station. Regular security could not stop them, but the stalkers did. They tore through the raiders in minutes. Since then, they have been our final defense." "Defense implies they work with you," said, "but you said they're contained." His eyes shifted uncomfortably. "They attack anything that enters their territory. Raiders learned this. It keeps them away." "So they're not really guards," said slowly. "They're more like a dangerous obstacle." "Precisely." Something about that bothered, but he didn't have time to think about it. The elevator stopped and the doors opened. Level 100 was different from the upper levels. The walls were darker, made of thick metal instead of the smooth white material above. Red lights lined the ceiling, giving everything a crimson glow. The air felt heavier here, warmer. "This level houses the station's main power core," explained. "Essential systems are maintained here. Please do not touch anything." They walked through corridors filled with humming machinery. Alien technicians worked at consoles, monitoring screens covered in symbols couldn't read. The floor vibrated slightly with the power flowing beneath them. Then it happened. An alarm screamed through the air. Red lights flashed everywhere. The technicians jumped up from their stations, their faces showing panic. "Emergency containment breach," a mechanical voice announced in multiple languages. "Void Stalker has escaped Sector 97. All personnel evacuate to safe zones immediately." Felt his blood go cold. Around him, the other ambassadors reacted with terror. The plant ambassador wrapped its vines around itself. The floating jellyfish darted upward toward the ceiling. "Move now," shouted, "back to the elevator." But the corridor filled with fleeing technicians. Everyone pushed and shoved, trying to reach safety. In the chaos, lost sight of. He called out. "I'm here," her voice came from somewhere to his left. "Keep moving." Tried to push through the crowd, but a large alien knocked into him. He stumbled sideways into a different corridor, away from the main group. When he looked back, he couldn't see anyone he knew. "Damn it," he muttered. He pressed the communication device in his ear. His voice crackled through static. "Where are you?" "I got separated. I'm in a side corridor on level 100. Get back to the main hall. Don't move away from the group." "I'm trying, but—" A sound stopped him mid-sentence. A low, rumbling growl that made his bones vibrate. It came from somewhere ahead in the dark corridor. Froze, his heart pounded in his chest. Slowly, something moved in the shadows. It was huge, low to the ground, with 6 legs that looked thick as tree trunks. Black scales covered its body, each one sharp as a knife. Its head was long and angular, filled with teeth that glowed faintly in the red light. The Void Stalker. It was even more terrifying than had imagined. 4 eyes stared at him, each one reflecting the red emergency lights. The creature stood at least 3 meters tall at the shoulder. Its tail, long and muscular, swayed behind it like a snake. "TAE's voice screamed in his ear. "I can see you on the security feed. Don't move, security is coming." But wasn't looking at the creature as a threat. Years of studying animals kicked in automatically. He watched its body language, the way it held its head, how its pupils dilated. This wasn't the posture of an attacking predator. The stalker's ears were flat against its head. Its tail was low, not high and aggressive. Its breathing was fast, almost panicked. One of its front legs had a cut, dark blood dripping slowly to the floor. "Run," begged through the communicator. Instead, did something that later he couldn't fully explain. He slowly lowered himself to one knee. The stalker's head pulled back, confused. "Easy," said softly. His voice was calm, the same tone he used with frightened lions and injured wolves back on Earth. "Easy there. You're scared, aren't you?" The creature made a sound, not a growl but something closer to a whine. It took a half step back. "You're hurt," continued, keeping his voice low and gentle. "All these alarms, all the running, it scared you. You didn't mean to get out, did you?" On Earth had worked with predators his whole career. Bears, tigers, crocodiles, sharks. People thought they were mindless killing machines, but they weren't. They were animals. They felt fear and pain and confusion just like any creature. This stalker, this apex predator that the council feared so much, looked lost. "What are you doing?" His voice was quieter now, horrified. "It's okay," said, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to or the stalker. He slowly extended his hand, palm up, non-threatening, the universal sign of peace from Earth. The stalker stared at his hand. Its nostrils flared, taking in his scent. Seconds passed like hours. Then the creature took a step forward, then another. It moved cautiously, its massive body tense and ready to bolt. Kept his hand steady, even though every instinct screamed at him to run. The stalker's head lowered. Its nose, warm and wet, touched his palm. It sniffed once, twice. Then, impossibly, the creature pressed its massive head against his hand. Let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Carefully, slowly, he moved his hand across the stalker's scales. They were warm and smooth, like touching stone heated by the sun. "Good," whispered. "See, I'm not going to hurt you." The stalker made another sound. This one was completely different from before. It was almost like a purr, deep and rumbling, coming from its chest. "Are you seeing this?" asked quietly. "The whole station is seeing this," replied. Her voice was filled with awe. Security stopped when they saw what was happening. "No one has ever done this. No one." The stalker shifted closer. It was so large that when it sat down, its shoulder was still higher than its head. It rested its head on its lap like a giant dog seeking comfort. Ran his hand along its neck, finding the spot where its scales were softer. The creature leaned into his touch, its 4 eyes closing halfway. "You're not a monster," said softly. "You're just scared and alone, aren't you?" The stalker made that purring sound again, louder this time. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Security forces arrived, weapons ready, but they stopped when they saw the scene before them. A human sitting on the floor. A void stalker with its head in his lap. Both completely calm. "Nobody move," the lead security officer said. He was a tall being covered in armor. "Nobody do anything." "It's okay," said. "Look at its body language. It's not aggressive. It was just frightened." "That thing has killed 57 beings in the last 1,000 years, the officer said. "Because you treated it like a weapon instead of a living creature," replied. He kept petting the stalker's head. "Look at it. Really look. When was the last time someone just sat with it, talked to it?" The security team exchanged glances. They had no answer. Arrived then, pushing through the security forces. She stared at and the stalker with wide eyes. "You're insane," she said. "Probably," admitted. He smiled. "But I'm right. This creature isn't evil, it's intelligent, social. It needs contact, not isolation." The stalker lifted its head and looked at. She tensed, but the creature just stared at her with curious eyes. "Remarkable," she whispered. Above them, on every level of the station, thousands of aliens watched through security cameras. They saw something that had never happened in council history. A human petting the apex predator, and the predator purring like a kitten. The council chamber was packed. Every ambassador sat in their seat, and dozens more observers filled the upper galleries. The air buzzed with 100 different languages as species debated what they had seen. Stood in the center of the room, alone. Sat in the visitor section, her face tight with worry. Security had spent 2 hours getting the void stalker back to its containment area. It went peacefully once had calmed it down. Chancellor raised her clawed hand for silence. The room became quiet instantly. "Of Earth," she said, her voice cold. "You violated a direct order. You approached a void stalker without authorization or protection. This is a serious offense." "I understand, Chancellor," replied. His voice was steady despite his racing heart. "Do you?" A new voice spoke up. Ambassador R of the species stood. He was a massive being covered in thick armor-like plates. His race were warriors, known throughout the galaxy for their military strength. "Your reckless action endangered everyone on this station. That creature could have killed you, could have gone on a rampage." "But it didn't," said. "Because you were lucky," R's voice boomed through the chamber. "This is exactly what we feared about humans. You take foolish risks. You ignore rules. You think you're special." Murmurs of agreement rippled through some sections of the chamber, but also noticed other ambassadors watching him with interest. "May I speak freely, Chancellor?" asked. His eyes studied him for a long moment. "Proceed." Took a breath. "I didn't ignore the danger, I assessed it. Back on Earth, I worked with predators for 15 years. Tigers, bears, crocodiles, species that could kill me with one strike. I learned to read their behavior, their body language. That stalker wasn't hunting. It was scared." "It's an apex predator," the Stone Ambassador said. "They don't feel fear." "Every living thing feels fear," spoke up from her seat. Several ambassadors turned to look at her. I've studied the footage of void stalkers over the past 3 days. Their behavior patterns match social pack predators from hundreds of worlds. They're not mindless killers." "Then explain why they've killed so many," R demanded. "Because you cornered them," said simply. "Every single death in the records happened when someone entered their territory with weapons, when someone tried to capture them or force them back into containment. You treated them like monsters, so they acted like monsters." "This is speculation," another ambassador said. "This one was tall and thin, with skin like blue glass. You cannot know what these creatures think." "Can't I?" Pulled out a small device from his pocket. "Security gave me access to the medical scan they did when they retrieved the stalker. May I show it?" Chancellor nodded. A hologram appeared in the air above his head. It showed the stalker's body, with different areas glowing in different colors. "This is its stress levels," explained. "When I first saw it, these readings were extreme. The creature was terrified. Look at its heart rate, almost twice its normal level. Its hormone levels showed panic, not aggression." He swiped his hand through the hologram. It changed to show different images. "Now look at these readings from when I was sitting with it. Heart rate dropped to normal. Stress hormones decreased by 80%. And this," he pointed to a specific area of the brain, "this is the section that controls social bonding. It was highly active." The chamber fell silent as ambassadors studied the images. "The creature was seeking comfort," added, "just like any intelligent social animal would when frightened and alone." "Impossible," R said, but his voice had less certainty than before. Stood up, his multiple eyes focused on. "I must confess something to this council, something I am ashamed of." The chamber's attention shifted to him. "I have been the station's liaison for stalker management for 20 years, continued. "In all that time, not once did I question our methods. We kept them isolated. We fed them through automated systems. We never attempted communication or understanding. We simply used them as weapons." He turned to face Chancellor. "The human is right. We treated them as things, not beings. And perhaps that says more about us than about them." A ripple of conversation spread through the chamber. Some ambassadors looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. "This is ridiculous." R slammed his fist on his desk. "The Council has maintained order for 10,000 years by following strict protocols. We cannot change our ways because one human pets a monster." "Why not?" a small voice asked. Everyone turned to look. The speaker was ambassador of the species. She was tiny, barely a meter tall, with large eyes and soft purple fur. Her species were known for their timid nature. "Why not change?" she repeated louder now. "If our protocols are wrong, should we not correct them?" "Our protocols are not wrong," R insisted. "They keep us safe." "Do they?" asked. "Or do they keep you comfortable? There's a difference between safety and avoiding challenge." Chancellor stood. Her full height was impressive, nearly 3 meters tall. The room became silent again. "The human raises uncomfortable questions," she said slowly. "Questions that I, in my 800 years, have failed to ask. We pride ourselves on being civilized, on being enlightened, but perhaps we have become stagnant." She looked directly at, "You broke our rules. This cannot be ignored. However, you also revealed a truth we have been blind to. The Council must decide what matters more." "Chancellor, surely you're not considering," R began. "I am considering many things, Ambassador," cut him off, "including whether humanity's perspective is what this Council needs. Their recklessness, as you call it, might also be called courage. Their disregard for our protocols might also be called innovation." She turned to address the entire chamber. "I propose we conduct an experiment. We will allow and to work with the Void Stalkers under controlled conditions. We will study the results. Then we will decide on humanity's membership status based on what we learn." "Absolutely not," R roared. "This is too dangerous." "Dangerous to whom?" asked quietly. "To us, or to our pride?" The chamber erupted in argument. Species shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some supported the Chancellor's idea. Others demanded be sent back to Earth immediately. Finally, called for a vote. The process took 30 minutes as each ambassador cast their decision. When it finished, the results appeared on the main screen. 28 in favor, 19 opposed. "The motion passes," Chancellor declared. "You and your colleague will have 30 days to work with the Void Stalkers. You will be monitored constantly. Any sign of danger and the experiment ends. Do you accept these terms?" Looked at, she gave him a small nod. "We accept," Chancellor said. "Then we are adjourned." Struck a metal rod against her desk, creating a ringing sound that echoed through the chamber. As the ambassadors filed out, many gave dark looks. Others seemed curious. A few even looked hopeful. R stopped next to on his way out. "You've made a mistake, human. When those creatures turn on you, when they show their true nature, the Council will remember that I warned them." "Maybe," said calmly. "Or maybe the Council will learn something new." R snorted and walked away. Rushed down to join. "Are you sure about this? We're putting everything on the line." "I know," said, "but I also know what I saw. That creature wasn't a monster, it was just lonely." "Lonely?" repeated. She smiled slightly. "Only you would think the galaxy's most feared predator is lonely." "Most things are simpler than they seem," said. "Fear makes us complicate them." "Approach them. I will help you. I owe the stalkers that much. I have spent 20 years failing them. Perhaps I can make amends." "Thank you," Ambassador said. As they left the chamber together, felt the weight of what he'd agreed to. 30 days to prove that understanding was better than fear. 30 days to change 10,000 years of thinking. No pressure at all. But as they walked through the station's corridors, passing windows that showed the stars beyond, felt something else too. Hope. Because if a human could pet the apex predator and live, maybe the galaxy wasn't as rigid as it seemed. Maybe there was room for new ideas after all. Maybe the Council just needed someone willing to reach out their hand first. Even if that hand might get bitten. Though was betting it wouldn't. He'd seen the stalker's eyes, seen the intelligence there, the loneliness. Predators weren't evil, they were just survivors. And sometimes, survivors just needed a friend. That understood perfectly. The containment area on level 115 was larger than expected. It stretched for hundreds of meters, with high ceilings and multiple sections divided by heavy metal barriers. Red lights still colored everything crimson, making the space feel like the inside of a furnace. "There are 12 stalkers total," explained. He stood with and on an observation platform above the main containment floor. Security officers surrounded them, weapons ready. "They are kept separated. We learned long ago that keeping them together led to violence." "Or maybe they were fighting because they were stressed," said, studying her tablet. It showed readings from sensors throughout the area. "These conditions are terrible for social animals. Too much noise from the machinery, temperature too high, no enrichment activities at all." "Enrichment," eyes swiveled to look at her. "Stimulation," explained. "Things to keep their minds active. Toys, puzzles, varied environments. On Earth, we learned that keeping intelligent animals in blank cages makes them go crazy." "They are not pets," one of the security officers said. His name was Officer, a skinned warrior with cybernetic enhancements. "They are weapons." "They're living beings," corrected, "and that's where we'll start. What do we need?" For the next 3 days, they worked on improving the environment. They lowered the temperature by 5 degrees, added sound dampening materials to reduce the machinery noise, created separate areas with different textures and heights for the stalkers to explore. The council watched everything through security cameras. Some ambassadors sent messages of support. Others sent warnings that they were wasting time. On the 4th day, decided it was time to make direct contact. "You're not going in there," officer said flatly. "I have orders to keep you safe." "I understand," said, "but I can't work with them from behind glass. They need to know I'm not a threat." "You're not a threat because you'll be dead in seconds." "Then stop me after the first second," suggested. He smiled, but his heart was racing. He wasn't stupid. He was terrified. Grabbed his arm. "Maybe we should start with remote observation, build up to direct contact." "These creatures have been isolated for centuries," said. "How long do you think they should wait before someone treats them with respect?" She held his gaze for a moment, then sighed. "You're impossible." "I've been told that before." They chose the stalker from his first encounter. Medical teams had treated its injury, and sensors showed it was healing well. The creature was currently in Section 3, a space about 50 meters square. Stood at the entrance door. Through the small window, he could see the stalker resting in the corner. Its black scales seemed to absorb the red light. "If anything goes wrong," officer began. "You shoot it, I know," took a breath. "Let's hope you don't have to." The door opened with a hiss. Stepped through. The door sealed behind him with a heavy clang that made him flinch. The stalker's head snapped up immediately. Its 4 eyes focused on him. The creature rose to its feet, muscles rippling under its scales. "Hey there," said softly. "Remember me." The stalker tilted its head. Its nostrils flared, taking in his scent. "I'm the one who scratched behind your ears," continued. He slowly sat down on the floor, making himself small and non-threatening. "Or whatever you call those things on your head." The creature took a step forward, then another. It moved with incredible grace for something so large. Outside watched the monitors. Her hands gripped the railing so hard her knuckles turned white. The stalker approached until it stood right in front of. Up close, it was even more massive. Its head alone was bigger than its entire torso. Then the creature did something unexpected. It laid down, lowering its body until it was at its level. "Oh," whispered, "you do remember." He slowly reached out and placed his hand on the stalker's nose. The creature leaned into his touch, making that deep purring sound again. "Good," said, "very good." He spent the next hour just sitting with the stalker, letting it get used to his presence. He noticed things he couldn't see from the security footage. The way the creature's eyes tracked his movements with intelligence. How it responded to his tone of voice, not just his words. The careful way it moved around him, making sure not to step on him with its massive legs. He said into his communicator, "Can you see this?" "I see it. I'm recording everything." "Look at its body language. This is a social creature trying to communicate. Every movement means something." He demonstrated by turning away from the stalker. Immediately, it made a low whining sound and nudged his shoulder with its nose. "See, it wants interaction, connection." Turned back and resumed petting its head. The whining stopped, replaced by purring. Over the next week, worked with the stalker every day. Each session lasted longer than the last. Analyzed every moment of footage, documenting the creature's behavior patterns. "I think it's male," she told during a break, "based on some physical characteristics, and I think he's young, maybe only 30 years old." Young asked, "He's 30. Void stalkers can live for 300 years according to the old records. 30 is basically a teenager." That made pause. "So we've been keeping teenagers locked in cells for their entire lives." "Essentially, yes." "No wonder they're aggressive," said quietly. On day 12, something changed. Entered the containment area as usual. But this time, the stalker immediately approached him and dropped something at his feet. It was a piece of metal, bent into an odd shape. "What's this?" Picked it up. The stalker watched him intently, its tail wagging slowly. "He's bringing you gifts," said over the communicator. "That's advanced social behavior. He's trying to bond with you." Felt his eyes water. This creature, kept in isolation and treated like a weapon, was trying to make friends. "Thank you," he told the stalker. "This is wonderful." The creature made a happy chirping sound and pressed its head against its chest. Word of the progress spread through the station. More ambassadors started watching the security feeds. Some remained skeptical, but others began asking questions. On day 15, a young alien scientist named requested permission to observe. He was from a species called the Wen, small beings covered in soft blue feathers. "I want to learn," said nervously. "My people, we're not warriors like we believe in understanding, not controlling. What you're doing, it's what we wish we could do." "Then come learn," said. "This isn't magic, it's just patience and respect." Started attending the sessions. He watched how moved around the stalker, how he used positive reinforcement, rewarding good behavior with attention and praise, how he never punished or showed fear. "On your world," asked one day, "do you do this with all predators?" "With the ones we can," said. "Some animals are too wild or too dangerous, but most creatures will respond to kindness if you give them a chance." "The Council does not think this way," said sadly. "We see danger first, understanding second." Maybe that's what needs to change. By day 20, the stalker had learned to respond to simple commands. Sit, stay, come, not because forced him, but because the creature wanted to cooperate. Started working with a second stalker, a female who was even larger than the first. She was more cautious, taking longer to trust. But eventually, she too responded to patient, gentle handling. Then came day 23, and everything changed again. Was in the containment area with the male stalker when alarms suddenly blared through the station. Not the red emergency lights from before. These were blue and accompanied by a wailing siren. "External threat detected," the computer voice announced. "Unknown vessels approaching station. All personnel to defensive positions." Officer's voice came through the communicator. "We need to evacuate you now." "What's happening?" asked. "Raiders, a small fleet. They're demanding we open the docking bays or they'll attack." Stomach dropped. The station had shields and weapons, but raiders were ruthless. People could die. The stalker sensed his fear. It pressed close to him, making a worried sound. "I'm coming out," said. He started toward the door. But then he heard something that made him stop. Through the walls, faint but clear, came the sounds of other stalkers. All 12 of them were calling out, their voices mixing in a haunting chorus. They knew something was wrong. His voice was urgent. Security is moving to defensive positions, but the raiders have attacked council stations before. They know the layout. They know where everything is. Including the stalkers, said, understanding flooding through him. The raiders will avoid those levels, officer said. They know better. No, said slowly. No, you're all thinking about this wrong. What do you mean? Asked. Looked at the stalker beside him, the creature that had brought him gifts, that had learned to trust, that was more than just a weapon. What if we gave them a choice? Said. A choice, officer sounded confused. What if we let them help? Not as weapons that attack everything, but as guardians who protect their home. That's insane, officer said. They'll kill everyone. No, said, certainty filling his voice. They won't, because they're not monsters, they're protectors, they always have been. We just never asked them properly. Silence on the communicator. Then Chancellor's voice came through, startling everyone. Explain your plan, human. The Council's main security center was chaos. Screens showed the approaching raider ships, 6 vessels moving in attack formation. Officers shouted commands in different languages. Weapons systems charged with a humming that vibrated through the floor. Stood in the center of it all with and beside him. Chancellor watched from her command throne, her yellow eyes fixed on. You have 2 minutes to explain, she said. Then we do this the traditional way. Pulled up a hologram showing the station's layout. The raiders know your defensive patterns. They've studied past attacks. They'll send teams to disable your shields from inside while their ships attack from outside. We know this, officer growled. That's why we have security at every critical junction. But they have inside information, added. Look at their approach vector. They're heading straight for the maintenance tunnels that lead to the shield generators. Someone told them the exact route. His eyes widened. There's a traitor on the station. Which means they know where your security will be, said. But there's one thing they won't expect. He changed the hologram to show the containment levels. The stalkers. Absolutely not, R's voice boomed. He pushed through the crowd of officers. You want to release those monsters during an attack, you'll kill us all. I want to give them a choice, corrected. Let me open the containment areas. Let me tell them what's happening. If they want to help protect this station, they will. If they don't, they'll stay in their areas. And if they attack our own people, R demanded. They won't, said firmly. I've spent 3 weeks with them. They're not mindless killers. They respond to intention and respect. You've worked with 2 of them, R argued. What about the other 10? They've all been watching, said. She pulled up footage on a separate screen. Look at this. Every day when works with the male in Section 3, the others come to the barriers between sections. They watch. They learn. Social learning is a sign of high intelligence. The raider ships were getting closer. 5 minutes until they reached weapons range. Chancellor stood. If we do this and you're wrong, thousands will die. If we don't and I'm right, thousands will die anyway, said. The raiders have defeated council security before, but they've never faced stalkers who fight by choice, not by fear. The Chancellor looked at the approaching ships, then at the security officers preparing for battle. Finally, at Do it, she said. Chancellor, no, R protested. The decision is made, Ambassador. His voice was steel. You have my authority, but if this fails, then I'll die first, said simply. I'm going down there with them. The hell you are, said. I'm going too. Don't even try to argue. You need someone to document this properly. Besides, you're terrible at understanding their communication signals. You need me. Stepped forward. I will accompany you as well. This is my chance to make amends for 20 years of failure. Looked at his friends, then nodded. Okay, let's go. They raced to the elevator with officer and a security team. The ride down to level 115 felt like it took forever. On the screens in the elevator, watched the raider ships move closer. 3 minutes until attack range. The doors opened. The containment area stretched before them, red lights flashing in time with the warning sirens. "Open all barriers between sections," ordered. "Let them see each other." Officer hesitated, then input the commands. Heavy metal walls rumbled and began rising. For the first time in centuries, the stalkers could see their own kind. The sounds they made were extraordinary. Calls and responses echoed through the vast space, a language couldn't understand but could feel. Joy, confusion, hope. Walk to the nearest observation platform and climb down the ladder to the containment floor. His stalker, the young male he'd befriended first, immediately rushed over. The creature made worried sounds and sniffed him all over, checking if he was hurt. "I'm okay," said, scratching the stalker behind his head ridge. "But we're not. The station is in danger." The other stalkers approached cautiously. 12 massive creatures, each one a perfect killing machine. They surrounded and grabbed S's arm. This was the plan, right? Not getting eaten. Yes, this was the plan, assured her, though his heart was pounding. He looked at each stalker in turn. "Listen to me. I know you understand more than you let on. Bad people are coming. They want to hurt this station, hurt the people here." The stalkers watched him with intelligent eyes. "You've been treated badly, kept in cages, called monsters. I know, I'm sorry, we're all sorry." He gestured to the station above. "But there are good people here too, people who want to change, who want to do better." The female stalker, the second one he'd worked with, stepped closer. She lowered her head and gently touched shoulder with her nose. "We need your help," said. "Will you protect this place, not because you have to, because you choose to?" Silence. The stalkers looked at each other, could almost see them thinking, communicating in ways he couldn't perceive. Then his young male stalker did something incredible. He walked to Officer and sat down in front of him. The officer tensed, weapon rising. "Don't shoot," said quickly. "Look at his posture. He's asking if you're pack, if you're family." Officer stared at the creature before him. Slowly, carefully, he reached out his hand. The stalker sniffed it, then made a soft sound and pressed his head against the officer's palm. "Spirits preserve us," whispered. "It's actually friendly." One by one, the other stalkers approached the security team. Not threatening, questioning, asking to join. 1 minute until the raiders reach attack range, the communicator announced. "We need to move," said. "Follow me." He ran toward the elevator. Behind him, 12 void stalkers followed. Their claws clicked on the metal floor like thunder. They rode the elevator up in groups. And 6 stalkers in the first trip. The elevator was crowded, the creatures pressing close but careful not to hurt anyone. When the doors opened on the main security level, chaos erupted. Aliens saw the stalkers and screamed. Some ran. Others reached for weapons. "Stand down," Chancellor's voice boomed through the speakers. "Do not fire on the stalkers." The raider ships opened fire. The station shook as energy blasts hit the shields. Red emergency lights flashed everywhere. "They're launching boarding pods," an officer reported. "Impact in 30 seconds. Looked at his young stalker. "You know what to do." The creature's eyes seemed to glow with understanding. It let out a roar that shook the walls. The other stalkers answered, their voices combining in a battle cry that was both terrifying and beautiful. Then they moved. The stalkers spread through the station with incredible speed and coordination. They didn't attack randomly. They positioned themselves at key junctions and critical systems. The boarding pods hit the outer hull. Raiders poured out, heavily armed and ready for traditional security forces. Instead, they found void stalkers. The security cameras captured everything. A team of raiders entering a corridor, only to face a female stalker who had positioned herself in front of the shield generator. She gave them one chance to retreat. When they opened fire instead, she showed them why stalkers were apex predators. But she didn't kill, she disabled, knocked weapons away, pinned raiders to the ground, left them for security to capture. The same scene repeated throughout the station. Stalkers working together, communicating with each other, protecting the people they'd chosen to defend. "They're fighting as a coordinated unit," said, staring at the screens in amazement. "Perfect pack tactics. This is incredible." But then something went wrong. One of the younger stalkers, facing 3 raiders, took a hit from an energy weapon. The creature stumbled, crying out in pain. Stalker was there instantly. He placed himself between the injured one and the raiders, roaring a challenge. 2 more stalkers arrived, forming a protective circle. The raiders tried to run. They didn't make it far. Security caught them within seconds. Medical teams rushed to treat the injured stalker. To everyone's shock, it let them. It understood they were trying to help. The battle lasted 8 minutes. The raiders who didn't surrender fled back to their ships. The Council's weapons damaged 2 vessels as they retreated. The others escaped, but they'd failed completely. 0 station casualties. 37 raiders captured. 1 injured stalker expected to make a full recovery. The council chamber met in emergency session an hour later. Stood in the center again, but this time he wasn't alone. His young male stalker sat beside him and stood on his other side. The ambassadors stared in disbelief. A void stalker, sitting calmly in the council chamber like it belonged there. "You were right," Chancellor said. She descended from her platform and approached the stalker. The creature watched her calmly. "We treated them as weapons, but they were always more than that." She slowly extended her clawed hand. The stalker sniffed it, then gently pressed his head against her palm. The entire chamber gasped. 10,000 years, said softly. 10,000 years, and we never asked. We never tried to understand. A human came and in 3 weeks accomplished what we could not in. She turned to face the council. "I call for an immediate vote on humanity's full membership status." "I second this motion," said. Even R stood. I was wrong. The human way is dangerous, yes, but sometimes danger is necessary for growth. I vote in favor." The vote was unanimous, 47 species all agreeing. Humanity was granted full council membership. But more than that, the Void Stalkers were granted something too: freedom, recognition, respect. 3 months later, stood in a newly constructed habitat on level 50. It was enormous, filled with varied terrain and enrichment items. The stalkers had space to run, to play, to be the social creatures they'd always been meant to be. Young aliens came to visit, learning the proper way to approach them, learning that respect and patience worked better than force and fear. Had become the station's first official stalker keeper, working alongside a team of specialists from different species, all of them trained in the human method of animal care. "This is amazing," said, watching a group of young aliens carefully offering treats to the stalkers. "A year ago, this would have been impossible to imagine." "Change always seems impossible until someone tries," said. His young male stalker approached, now wearing a harness that identified him as an official station guardian. Other stalkers wore similar gear, proud symbols of their new role. The stalker laid down and put his head in his lap, just like that first day. "You know what we need to do," said. She sat down beside them. "We need to name them. They deserve proper names, not just numbers." "What should we call this one?" asked, scratching behind the stalker's head ridge. The creature made his happy purring sound. "How about Bora?" suggested. "It means purple in Korean, for the purple glow in his eyes." "Bora," repeated, the stalker's tail wagged. "I think he likes it." Around them, the station hummed with life. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds living and working together. And now, 12 void stalkers who were no longer seen as monsters but as guardians, as friends. Chancellor visited the habitat that evening. She stood beside and watched the stalkers play with enrichment toys designed by his team. "The council has existed for 10,000 years," she said. "In that time we've achieved much, but we also became comfortable, set in our ways. Change is scary, said. Indeed, but perhaps humanity's gift to the galaxy is not your technology or your strength. It's your willingness to reach out your hand to those we fear, to see potential where we see only threat. We're not perfect, said. Humans have made terrible mistakes. We've fought wars, destroyed our own planet. We understand fear and violence. And yet you chose compassion, said. That is true strength. Bora approached the Chancellor and gently nudged her hand. She smiled and pet him, no longer afraid. I have a proposal, she said. The Council has many problems we've ignored because they seem impossible. Species in conflict, resources we can't share fairly, old grudges that keep peace fragile. Would humanity be willing to help us see these problems with fresh eyes? You want us to pet more apex predators? Asked with a smile. Metaphorically speaking, yes. Looked at, she grinned and nodded. We'd be honored, said. As the station's artificial night cycle began, lights dimming to simulate evening stayed in the habitat with Bora. The stalker had curled up beside him, breathing deeply in sleep. Sat on his other side. Think we can actually do this? Help the Council change 10,000 years of tradition. One step at a time, said. Just like with Bora, patience, respect, understanding. And occasionally petting the apex predator. That too. Above them, through the transparent ceiling, stars shone bright and endless. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue planet that had almost destroyed itself before learning to reach for those stars. Now humanity had a place among them, not because they were the strongest but because they'd been willing to kneel down, extend a hand, and see a frightened creature instead of a monster. Sometimes thought, that's all it takes to change the galaxy. A little kindness, a lot of courage, and the willingness to pet the apex predator.